This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Weeds compete with plantings for water and nutrients. So farmers and gardeners may have good reason to hate them. But weeds can also bring pretty flowers and wild beauty to places lacking either. British nature writer Richard Mabey offers support for them in his new book. The title says it all: Weeds, in defense of nature's most unloved plants. But when exactly is a plant considered a weed? Experts at Penn State University say the answer is simple: when the undesirable qualities outweigh the good qualities. A crop plant generally produces several hundred seeds, but a weed plant can produce tens or even hundreds of thousands of seeds. And if seeds get buried, they may survive for many years underground. Eradicating weeds means that you have to remove all the seeds and roots so the plants will not grow back. But birds or the wind can reintroduce them to the land. A more common way to deal with weeds is to control them enough so that the land can be used for planting. Experts advise using 2 or more control methods to deal with weeds. Chemical weed killers or natural treatments like corn gluten can suppress weed growth, but so can dense planting. Bill Curran is a professor of weed science at Penn State. He says a dense, competitive crop that quickly shades the soil from the sun will help reduce weed growth. Other controls include turning over the soil, pulling the weeds, or covering them with mulch made of wood, garden waste, or other material. But even mulch has its limits. Natural resource specialists point out that weeds can be transported in mulch. This is also true of soil, grain, hay, and animals. Yet animals like sheep or goats eat weeds, so they can provide a biological control. Insects and other organisms can also act as biological controls. Preventing the spread of weeds is an important part of weed management. Farm vehicles should be kept out of areas with weeds. If that is not possible, then clean off the equipment and your shoes when leaving. Some people burn weeds or bury them deep in the ground, or make them into mulch. Professor Curran says another way to make use of weeds is to compost them. The process of making organically rich compost produces heat. This heat kills many, though not all, weed seeds. The same is true for seeds that pass through animals that graze on weeds. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Niger is located in the Sahel area south of the Sahara. The West African country is largely hot, dry desert. But since the 1980s, Niger has gotten a lot greener. Around the world, trees are often cut down to clear land for bigger farms or more homes for growing populations. But in Niger, many farmers plant trees to protect their crops. They might cut some down, but often to sell the wood so they can buy food during a drought. Over the years, An agricultural advisor named Tony Renato has helped people in the Sahel learn about the value and care of trees. Mr. Renato says much of the response has come from farmers themselves instead of non-governmental organizations or government officials. He says the idea of planting trees has spread from farmer to farmer as they shared the idea with their neighbors. Trees can provide a wind barrier. They improve the soil when their leaves fall. And they protect against soil erosion by holding moisture in the ground. Niger often has severe dry periods. Researchers say villages where farmers planted trees did better than others during a drought and food shortage in 2005. Mahaman Larwanu works for the group African Forest Forum. Mr. Larwanu says the villagers who had trees grew more food and could also survive on fruit and leaves from the trees. And they could cut wood and take it to the city to sell and get some money to buy food. In the past, the French colonists who ruled Niger had a policy of government ownership of trees. Not surprisingly, this policy did nothing to make farmers want to take care of a valuable resource that was not their own. In Burkina Faso, a farmer named Yakuba Sawadogo became internationally known for growing a forest. His neighbors resisted his new farming methods at first. They even burned his land. But later, they saw how trees could protect the soil against the spreading desert. His story is documented in a film called The Man Who Stopped the Desert. But Mr. Sawadogo says in much of Africa, nobody is looking after our forests. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. To read and listen to more agriculture news and for English teaching activities, go to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at VOA Learning English.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report in Special English. A small nonprofit company in Cambodia is turning used cooking oil into high-quality biodiesel fuel. The idea is to reduce air pollution caused by low-quality diesel made from petroleum. In Cambodia, heavy trucks usually use petroleum diesel. So do many older cars. The diesel sold in Cambodia is a high sulfur fuel. It is banned in more developed countries. Experts say diesel exhaust is a big part of air pollution in the country. And air pollution causes lung disease and other respiratory problems. Naga Biodiesel was set up in 2008 to provide a cleaner fuel choice. The company produces high-quality biodiesel at a small factory in northwest Cambodia. Most of the oil is supplied by local restaurants at no cost. The restaurants then buy back the biodiesel at a 40% discount or reduced price. The cooking oil is washed and cleaned to remove contaminants before being processed into diesel. And the process of making biodiesel has a useful byproduct, glycerin, which can be used as a cleaner. The founder of Naga Biofuels says Biodiesel burns cleaner in engines and helps improve the air quality in the fast-growing city of Siem Reap. Providing used cooking oil to biodiesel producers makes sense to restaurants too. The manager of a restaurant in Siem Reap called the Blue Pumpkin says he does not have to worry about what to do with used cooking oil anymore. He adds, the whole service is very clean and professional. Naga Biofuels wants to increase production to 10,000 liters by 2013. The business plans to provide its service in environmentally sensitive areas where low-quality diesel can cause damage. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. Farmers in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo are protecting against crop theft in an unusual way. The farmers are growing crops that are less likely to be stolen. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says in the past year, many farmers have started to grow different crops. Guillaume Kahomboshi is a food security expert with the FAO in Goma. He says small farmers think the wars that break out at harvest time may just be an excuse to steal their crops. Mr. Karamboshi notes that most of the people in Rutshuru, a territory near Uganda, are starting to grow soybeans. The expert suggests this is because soybeans are not good to eat until they have been dried and milled. He says the armed groups want food that is ready to eat. In addition, there is good demand for soybeans in Uganda for making biscuits and other processed foods. Farmers in Masisi, another war-stricken territory in Uganda, are switching to growing cassava. Frank Muki is an agronomist at Goma University. He agrees that soybeans are less likely to be stolen, but he is not so sure about cassava, which is called manioc in Congo. He says cassava is more of a risk because it is a staple food. Cassava is not necessarily easy to steal, but it is easily destroyed. The non-governmental organization Concern spoke with people in villages in Masisi. The group reports that there was less theft of cassava than of other crops. Years of war and ethnic conflict in parts of eastern Congo have divided communities there. This means villagers' crops are as likely to be stolen by their neighbors as by the armed groups. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Farmers in Haiti plant about 60% of their crops in the spring. But this spring is a struggle with disaster. The January 12th earthquake flattened much of the capital and surrounding areas. It left more than 200,000 people dead and about 1 million homeless. International recovery plans include helping Haiti expand food production. But now, seasonal rains do not make the situation any easier. The rains continue through May and June. Farmers in the quake area lost tools as the shaking caused landslides that buried equipment. Also, many farmers need money for seeds and fertilizer. And Sabina Vilka of the aid group CARE says many lack the money to hire help to prepare the land. For the planting, they also need local labor, she says. And since they do not have enough money to hire people, the work will simply not be done. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization said it has delivered tools and seeds to thousands of families in the quake area. The earthquake was centered near Port-au-Prince. An estimated 600,000 people left for the countryside. Experts say it will be difficult to feed them. Food prices are high, and many people fled the capital with only the clothes they were wearing. Gerald Murray at the University of Florida is an expert on Haiti. He says many rural families have taken in relatives and friends who lost homes and jobs. There may be enough to eat for a while, he says, but before too long, there may be hunger. Farming is about 60% of Haiti's economy, but most food comes from imports. Before the quake, the government and private groups were working to improve agriculture. Deforestation is a major problem. There are few trees to protect soil from floods, droughts, and severe storms. In the 1600s, Haiti's French colonizers cleared forests to plant sugarcane. In the 1950s, forests were cut down for wood and other products. Poor technology and poor roads also reduced agricultural production. So did animal and plant diseases. Farmers moved to cities. Professor Murray says the average farm in Haiti is about 1 to 1.5 hectares. Fields are commonly divided between level ground and a mountainside. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report, available at voaspecialenglish.com and on Twitter and Facebook at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Weather does not discriminate between large and small farms. If it rains too much or too little, crop insurance can pay for losses. Yet insurance usually costs too much for a farmer with as little as a hectare or two of land. But now a program called Kilimo Salama, or Safe Farming, offers low-cost insurance in parts of Kenya. The program is offered by the Syngenta Foundation. The foundation was established by the Swiss agricultural chemical maker Syngenta. Farmers register at businesses taking part in the program and receive a policy number through their mobile phone. Every time the farmers buy seeds, fertilizer, or other inputs, they pay an extra 5% in addition to the price. This extra cost is the insurance premium. The farmers are paid back for the inputs if their crops fail because of drought or flood. The program is designed for maize and wheat farmers like Josephat Lungat. He owns a 2-hectare farm near Eldoret, in western Kenya. He said, "In a case where we do not have a lot of rainfall, it means we are going to lose all the crops. But this insurance policy is going to cover the farm inputs that we use in the farms. So that is going to give us the certainty of going back to the farms again if the rains do not come." He buys his agricultural inputs at Maraba Investments in Eldoret. About 200 farmers signed up for the insurance within the first 2 weeks that it was offered there. Beatrice Kemboy is a director of the business. She says every day she and her workers register from 5 to 10 farmers in the program. When farmers buy their inputs, the store worker uses a mobile phone camera to scan barcode symbols that match the product. A text message confirming the policy number and sale is then sent automatically. The program also uses solar-powered weather stations to record local rainfall amounts. The data is sent to the UAP insurance company. When there is crop failure because of a drought or flood, farmers receive a text message. It tells them to receive payment from the business where they purchased their inputs. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. You can read and listen to our reports at voaspecialenglish.com. And you can add your comments. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and iTunes at VOA Learning English.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Some private game farmers in South Africa are hiring armed protection for their rhinos. New security companies are being started to fight an increase in rhinoceros poaching. Poachers are now well armed and well financed. A single horn sells for more than $65,000 per kilogram. That is more valuable than gold. Rhino horns are sold mostly in Vietnam and China. People there wrongly believe that the material in the horn can cure all kinds of problems. Simon Rood started a security company in South Africa 5 years ago when rhino poaching started to increase. His 35 rangers supervise an area of 150,000 hectares in Limpopo province. Simon Rood was a soldier in the South African Army and gives military training to his rangers. He says they have never lost a rhino to poaching. This, he says, is because his rangers patrol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and live and sleep in the countryside. Callie Botha manages a wildlife business that had 6 rhinos. Recently, he found one dead with its horns cut off. He owned the rhino for 12 years. Replacing a rhino costs about $28,000. But Callie Botha says armed protection also costs a lot, and he worries about his own safety. So he may stop breeding rhinos. He says the risk is too high. Other wildlife businesses are willing to pay to protect their rhinos. Karen Trendler works at South Africa's only rhino orphanage. She thinks there should be a law to establish rules for training. If security companies are not well trained, she says, there is a risk of corruption. She says a long-term solution will come through education and law enforcement. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Most kinds of rose plants are native to Asia, but roses also grow in other parts of the world, including Northwest Africa, Europe, and the United States. In 1986, Congress and President Ronald Reagan declared the rose as America's national floral emblem. They proclaimed it the national flower, in other words. But whatever the name, the choice of the rose did not smell very sweet to supporters of other popular flowers. Some say roses are difficult to grow, but you have a better chance of success if you start with a few suggestions from experts. First, choose a place to grow your roses where they can get sunshine for about 6 hours on bright days. You can buy roses from a garden center or by mail. You can buy potted roses, also known as container roses, or bare root plants. Each kind has its fans. Some gardeners say potted roses are easier to plant. They say the roots develop better if you start with potted roses. But others point out that bare root roses come without soil, so they weigh less to transport, and that can save money. The University of Illinois Extension advises getting bare root roses as close to planting time as you can. If they arrive before you are ready to plant them, make sure the packing material is moist. Keep the plants in a cool, dark place. You plant the roses while they are dormant. The resting plants have no leaves but still need water. When growing roses, the soil should feel moist deep down. Watering should be done in the morning. You can avoid problems like black spot and mildew that way. Be careful not to water roses too much. Too much water can cause unhealthy discoloration on the leaves. After heavy rains or too much watering, try temporarily pulling away mulch from around the roots. Doing that will help dry the soil. Placing mulch around rose plants is normally a good idea. Mulch suppresses weeds and holds moisture in the soil. You can use mulch made from bark, pine needles, cottonseed, or oak leaves. If the soil is very dry, you can add peat or compost to help condition it. If aphids, thrips, or other insects invade your rose bushes, you may be able to force them off with just a strong spray of water. For VOA Special English, I'm Mario Ritter. Share your secrets about growing roses at voaspecialenglish.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Poinsettias are the best-selling potted flowering plant in the United States, and they are a traditional part of Christmas celebrations. That is why almost all of them are sold in the wintertime. The Department of Agriculture estimates that Americans bought $250 million worth of poinsettias last year.
The poinsettia is native to Central America and needs warmth to grow. Bright red poinsettias are the best known, but there are about 100 different kinds in colors including white, pink, yellow, and purple. The flowers of the poinsettia are very small. Around the flowers are colorful leaves called bracts. These bracts are what give the plants their beauty. The poinsettia is named for Joel Robert Poinsett from South Carolina. In 1825, President John Quincy Adams appointed him as the United States' first minister to Mexico. He saw the colorful plants growing in the wild there. He liked them so much that he sent some cuttings back to the United States. People who are allergic to the latex produced by rubber trees can develop a mild skin rash from poinsettia plants. Babies and pets that chew on the plants can get sick. But experts say the plant is not as poisonous as some people think. Then there is the question of how to say poinsettia. Do not be surprised if you hear someone say poinsettia. Both pronunciations are common. In the 1920s, Albert Ecke and his son Paul became interested in the poinsettia's ability to flower in winter. Paul Ecke thought it would be a good plant for Christmas time. That they started a farm in California. Today, Ecke Ranch remains a major supplier to the United States and the world. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
I'm Carolyn Persutti with the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Food prices continue to rise, threatening to push more people into poverty and hunger. Experts have been urging increased efforts around the world to increase agricultural productivity. A new report by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says one of the best ways would be to remove the barriers women farmers face that male farmers do not. Women farmers are often less productive than men. But there are good reasons for that, says Agnes Quisenbing. She is an economist with the International Food Policy Research Institute. She says women farmers have fewer resources than male farmers. The new FAO report says women make up 43% of the world's farmers, but only about 10 to 20% of them own the land they farm. Without owning land, it is harder for them to get credit to buy inputs such as better seeds and fertilizers. In many countries, women are half as likely as men to use fertilizers to increase the amount of crops. In addition, Ms. Quisenbing says many of the world's women are raising their children at the same time they are farming. The FAO report says helping women farmers could increase agricultural output in the developing world by as much as 4%. This in turn could reduce the number of undernourished people by as much as 17%. Ms. Quisenbing says just helping women farmers have the same resources that male farmers have would do a lot to improve agricultural productivity and reduce hunger and malnutrition. Ms. Quisenbing helped write the FAO report. She says the report does not try to gain sympathy. It makes the case for women farmers based on business reasons. She says governments should support programs that help women farmers. These include financial support to help them buy better seeds and fertilizers. But she says policies in many countries also need to change. She says many laws discriminate against women in the areas of property, labor force, and marriage. Ms. Quisenbing says studies show that women are more likely than men to spend money on food, health, and educating their children. And that means a better future for the next generation. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can find transcripts and MP3s of our reports at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook at VOA Learning English.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Agriculture produces a lot of the greenhouse gases that scientists link to rising temperatures and climate change. Agriculture can also be hurt by the effects of climate change. A new report says high temperatures and unpredictable weather are disrupting agriculture in many parts of the world. The report is called Innovations in Sustainable Agriculture, Supporting Climate-Friendly Food Production. The World Watch Institute in Washington published it. The report suggests ways that the agriculture industry could reduce its effects on the environment. Danielle Nierenberg was one of the report's authors. She says industrial agriculture uses a lot of fossil fuels. She says the chemicals used in fertilizers, pesticides, and transportation depend on fossil fuels. Danielle Nierenberg says animal production has an especially big effect on the environment. She notes that the amount of meat being eaten in countries like Brazil, China, and India is growing. As a result, more industrial animal facilities or factory farms are being built in the developing world. Those big farms need fossil fuels to operate. They also require long-distance transportation. She said all those things can contribute to climate change. The report recommends 6 land and water use practices that it says are sustainable. These include growing trees on farmland to reduce soil erosion, and planting cover crops to make soil less affected by drought, heat, and pests. Other recommended practices include recycling wastewater in cities, drip irrigation, and replacing chemical with natural fertilizer. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. When is a plant considered a weed? Experts at Penn State University have a simple answer: when the undesirable qualities outweigh the good qualities. Consider that crops generally produce several hundred seeds from each plant. By comparison, each weed plant can produce tens or even hundreds of thousands of seeds, and some buried seeds can survive up to 40 years or even longer. Eradicating weeds means that you have to remove all the seeds and roots so the plants will not grow back. But birds or the wind can reintroduce them to the land. A more common way to deal with weeds is to control them enough so that the land can be used for planting. Experts advise using 2 or more control methods to deal with weeds. Chemical weed killers or natural treatments like corn gluten can suppress weed growth. Dense planting of a crop can also act as a natural control. Bill Curran at Penn State in University Park, Pennsylvania, is a professor of weed science. He says one of the most common methods for suppressing weeds is dense planting. He says a dense, competitive crop that quickly shades the soil will help suppress many weeds. The seeds need light to grow, so blocking the sun will reduce weed growth. Other controls include turning over the soil, pulling the weeds, or covering them with mulch made of wood, garden waste, or other material. But even mulch has its limits. Natural resource specialists point out that weeds can be transported in mulch. This is also true of soil, grain, hay, and animals. Yet, animals like sheep or goats eat weeds, so they can provide a biological control. Insects and other organisms can also act as biological controls. Preventing the spread of weeds is an important part of weed management. Farm vehicles should be kept out of areas with weeds. If that is not possible, then clean off the equipment and your shoes when leaving. Some people burn weeds or bury them deeply or make them into mulch. Professor Curran says another way to make use of weeds is to compost them. The process of making organically rich compost produces heat. The heat will kill many, though not all, weed seeds. The same is true of seeds that pass through animals that graze on weeds. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Tell us about your own struggle against weeds. You can post comments at voaspecialenglish.com.